Thank you. So we will re-advertise. I think that can be, if we get them in by the 28th instead of the 30th, which is Wednesday. Does that give you enough time to get them added into the agenda? Yeah. And it's just, okay. Then we would close the applications by the 28th and yeah. We can go with whatever recommendations were given before. I don't think we need to get into the thicket of times and days right now because it's a whole other topic. Okay.
Do you want to just, you mentioned that the decision to re-advertise is not necessarily at all based upon qualification of the applicant. So it's more an
No,
effort to just try to
open the pool.
increase visibility. Because I know some of us have asked people about it and they haven't seen it. And so I think that's just so that the people who did apply know that they are being, do we want to reach out to them? Or are we just going to?
We can.
Well, there's only one person.
It's one person.
Okay.
The treasurer was not appointed. The question is this committee ready to appoint the treasurer? We received 2 applications, one of which council has decided there is a conflict of interest. I believe the other application is a very appropriate selection. I think he has a thorough background. He's very detail-oriented.
He served on refuse and recycling
For a year.
Bill is meticulous. He is, as Jen said, detail-oriented. A lot of experience with contracts. You'd have to be looking at payments and things. So I would recommend that he be appointed.
Do you see his application or resume? No. Okay. What I would like to recommend is that the Finance Committee approve recommending the solicitor authorizing appointing the treasurer when selected as a check signer, with the idea that if we can get this application out to everybody so everybody can look through it, and we could add it to, we could consider appointing a treasurer next Tuesday.
You want me to add a motion under my report for that?
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like finance could recommend that Bill be appointed treasurer and then council can vote it up or down. That seems a cleaner way to approach it. I mean, it does put Bill in an awkward position if we say no, but I would not do that to anybody. But I think that's the cleaner way to do it. Well,
Yeah, I don't really want to amend the agenda. That's why I just was.
You're right. That's
I think also Dave had made it clear that, since we feel as though there's an identified conflict of interest, he'd be amicable to seeing if there's any way we can clear that conflict of interest. So
Right.
I think that would need.
I'll speak up. Dave, you would need to resign from the authority.
I understand that.
Okay, just to be clear, everybody, he needs to resign.
My negotiation thing would be, I would stay on the board until I'm replaced. I don't know, well, okay, well, whatever, the lawyers figure out, tell me what to do. But I don't, yes, I do understand, if I was appointed treasurer, I could resign, and we have a meeting on the 19th. I could resign on the 19th.
I think you need to resign. If you want someone to consider appointing you as treasurer, you need to remove the conflict by resigning, like, as soon as possible.
Well, if you so desire me to be the treasurer.
It's not for me to say who desires what. I'm just saying, as with respect to the conflict that was identified by Mr. Hartman,
Right.
that in order to remove that, you would need to resign from the authority.
Okay. And you could tell me when, yes, I understand.
I would say the benefit to, if Dave is willing to do that, Dave, who has served as the treasurer, understanding the process, and with a new business manager coming in, that would at least alleviate.
I don't want to say confusion, but I mean, I think you knowing what you're doing coming in the door versus trying to train someone new.
Continuity of the
Yes.
situation.
Continuity.
Okay, so
Sorry, I was leave, I have to be in the house.
I'm gonna.
Thank you, David. Good luck with your appointment.
I'm going to stand with making a motion to approve recommending the solicitor draft and council approve a resolution authorizing the appointed treasurer, when that so happens, and assistant treasurer as authorized check signers for all borough accounts. I'll make that motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. So we can move forward with that. And then I would like to add to the borough manager's report on Tuesday, selection and appointment of treasurer and assistant treasurer. And can we make sure that everybody has those resumes, applications, letters of interests sent to them prior?
I will send them out today.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Okay,
So will we be voting on a treasurer on Tuesday?
hopefully.
Okay.
We have 2 applications, both viable applicants with the exception of the conflict of interest on one of them.
Okay.
With him indicating he would be willing to resolve the conflict of interest.
Correct.
Right.
Not willing to, he has to resolve
Has to.
before Tuesday.
Well,
Think-
that's a little,
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think that's
he's-
unfair.
Timing of that, is there potential to reappoint him pending confirmation of that resignation? I mean,
Right.
between
Yeah,
now
it
and
would-
You might have to, like,
yeah, it
you
sounds
have
like,
to send a letter of resignation into the authority to the
Yeah,
proper
accept it.
person and
Yeah.
copy us in.
Right.
And
Just
to
some-
the extent that it's, as I recall, I don't think the resignation is ineffective until accepted.
By the board. I mean, their meeting is the same day typically as our infrastructure meeting, so not next Monday, the following Monday. Which,
I must say, when I called Dave and I said he was serving in both as treasurer and Westerberg,
yeah.
I told him we believed that there is a conflict of interest. I told him that we assumed that he would prefer to serve on Western Berks, and he said yes. So what he's saying today is 180 degrees different than what he said to me in that phone call. Now, people can change their minds, that's fine, but he was told there was a conflict of interest if that was his choice at that time.
So-
There is something to be said about our business managers resigning
Yes.
and the new treasurer, qualified or not qualified as the person may be, doesn't understand what we're doing.
Great.
Right,
We'll
so-
all get we'll all get the applications again, if everybody read them over so that Tuesday we can have discussion and move forward. We can, I believe, offer an appointment to him pending the resignation. And if we were to have assistant treasurer in place, they could do the duty until the treasurer is available to do the duty. I would
prefer to
Yes,
see
but-
him present a letter that he has sent to the authority that he has resigned.
prior to
If the authority
Tuesday.
doesn't have the ability to accept that yet, then I.
That's hard for him to say, I'm going to resign and then not be appointed.
Yeah,
Well,
I-
if I'm appointed, then he can ask them not to accept it.
Correct. Okay.
Yeah. You
That's a
can
good, that's a good point.
Okay.
Yes.
rescind it because of
Yeah.
the timing in there.
Yeah.
Mr. Hartman identified a conflict of interest.
Correct.
In order to consider appointing him, that conflict of interest must be removed. And I understand, like, well, what happens if he resigns and then he doesn't get anything? Well, it's, the conflict of interest exists,
Okay.
Right.
as identified by Mr. Hartman.
Correct. Okay. Any other discussion on this? We good? Okay.
We're gonna notify Mr. Reeser what he has to do.
You will, Michelle? Okay. And explain to him the out, if so not chosen. Okay. Number 10, the 2026 budget discussion. It's my understanding, speaking with Chris, that we can reduce expenses without reopening the budget.
Chris Valente or Chris Hartman?
Chris Hartman, sorry.
To
Okay.
me, that was very obvious. But maybe not.
If expenses can be reduced without reopening, discuss process by which expenses will be reexamined and the extent to which the approved budget. Oh, that's a kind of different topic. I don't know that today is, after an hour and a half, is the right day to dive into this. And this is something I would,
Whole meeting in and of itself.
I would like to consider
Agreed.
tabling. Whether actually there's no motion.
Well, I think we need to find out from the solicitor if there's a deadline for reopening a budget.
Mhm.
Yes, it's that we have the month, that by the end of the month is our requirement.
But can we change line items and lessen them without reopening the budget?
You can always discuss ways to, as
Yeah.
I believe Mr. Hartman already
Right.
advised you, yes.
Correct. So we can, and I don't, unless anybody would like to actually reopen the budget, please, speak now or forever hold your peace. I don't think that's something that I would like to do.
I don't think it's practical.
I don't think it's practical either, but
Mhm.
I'm
The budget-
I'm willing
budget
to
discussions took place for
discuss
many
it.
months.
You can always reduce expenses.
Right.
Right, without reopening the
And
budget.
that is our goal.
That is our goal.
Snapshot in time, you don't spend more,
Right,
doesn't mean you can't spend less.
exactly. So it's not, so this is something that can be tabled. And we can discuss it next month because it's not, unless anybody wants to reopen the budget. Okay. Is there any other discussion on number 10 that anybody wants to bring up? Okay, hearing none. Retainer agreements for solicitor services. Discuss every law firm providing service to the budget, enter into a retainer agreement within the next 60 days.
So we use 4 law firms, 2 of whom have retainer agreements, including Masano Bradley, thank you, and 2 of whom do not, that we can find.
Who is the other one that we have the retainer agreement with?
The Labor Law Council.
Siemens.
So the ones we do not have are Kozloff Stout, and Dan Becker does things like zoning hearing board.
And Civil Service Commission.
And we do not have with Hartman Valeriano, the Governor Lutz. And they will be continuing on some matters such as litigation with them all.
Correct.
So it seems to me we need, I don't know how you review a bill without having a retainer agreement and verifying what the rates are. And so it seems to me that 60 days is plenty of time to enter into a retainer agreement. And I think we need to tighten this up. So that's why I asked that this be put on the agenda.
I'm in favor of this, and I'm happy to make a motion to approve.
Ask the solicitor whether she
Second.
sees any downside.
No, our rules of professional conduct mandate a written fee agreement. I assume at some point in time, there was one. I mean, an example I can give you is a very large client of my firm is called Tom Masano Auto Group. So last year or so, I don't remember the last time I gave him an agreement. I gave him one and one year signed this. So we've updated things. So it's entirely proper and common, and I'm sure they'll be happy to provide it to you.
Mhm.
Thank you.
I'll second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. You will reach out to those 2 law firms? Thank you. I want to skip over 12 and quickly look at 13. Can you, Michelle, maybe explain to me why admin is with finance versus with personnel?
That's how the borough's borough code lists
Correct.
the committee. And when the Finance and Administration Committee was formed by the borough and codified in Chapter 1 of the borough's code,
Right.
administration was placed with finance. Don't ask me why, I was not here.
Okay. I think there's a lot of moving parts right now all over the place, and I would consider tabling this right now until we can get a little bit more information. Part of 13, we're looking at number 16, if we go down, to communications, and possibly creating an ad hoc committee. And then that jumps back up to, 12 and 14, when you're talking about addition of agenda items and public comment policy, like the last, 5 points on this agenda are jumping around and sort of all over the place, and it's too much to take in after an hour and 40 minutes. So I would like to table, recommending council authorize the solicitor to draft an ordinance to move administration to personnel.
So 13.
13. I would like to make a motion to table that.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Then let's jump down quickly to 16. Discuss communications by the borough to residents and whether to establish a subcommittee or ad hoc committee to address improving communications. I think this should happen. I think the current administration and incoming administration, the current council, are interested in improving communications with the residents and the public. And I think it's a lot of small topics that need to be discussed, which are too much to throw onto any of the major committees. And I think we should have an ad hoc committee. Does anybody else have any input?
Would it be appropriate for that ad hoc committee to fall under personnel, since it would likely impact the staff and their time, things like that?
Well, I think
I don't know how we typically,
everything affects staff, so that there might be a different reason. I don't think that's.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and a lot of it is
I think
communications.
it's more administration, though. Wherever administration goes, I would think that goes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's about our introduction of communication
Right.
in, but either way, all of that's going to end up with council.
Yeah, so if it's an ad hoc committee, wouldn't it just report under committee reports monthly to council to whatever it's going to be doing? Does it have to fall under another committee, or wouldn't it just have its own committee report monthly?
That would be a question for the solicitor.
It's an ad hoc committee. It's not a standing committee.
Right.
Therefore, it would report in the same fashion, to the extent that you would want it to, and add it to the regular agenda.
To the council's agenda. Right. Okay.
Okay.
Then I think at that point, we need to discuss who will sit on it, and it would have to be less than 3 council members, or it would have to be less than 4 council members. So 3.
Chris is not chairing the committee. I would suggest that he chair the ad hoc.
Ad hoc committee.
Sure, yeah. I'm not, my only, I plan to participate either way. I'm not sure my lack of creative spirit makes me the driving force behind this, but I'm sure others can be the driving force behind it, so, yeah.
You're not getting your.
I'm sure you can be the lightning rod for all of our creative ideas.
Yeah, I think this is, it's been stated that this is a goal of all of council, hopefully, music to the ears of our residents. So it's a really important thing that I think we all.
I don't think creativity is necessary, but the ability to drive forward an agenda of clarity is probably as important as being creative, so I
Yeah,
think you're perfectly suited.
okay.
So we can have residents on an ad hoc committee, correct?
We can. Yeah.
Should they apply? I think they should apply them. I think we should decide how many are on. Beyond it, I think we should open applications.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. We can have up to 3 council, and if we did 2 residents, you'd have a 5-person table. Residents could give their input as to what they're seeing versus what we're seeing.
You also have 4 residents, which I would think would be more representative, different points of view,
Okay.
but that's my personal.
I mean, again, as we bring more people in, just being aware, we had a hard time deciding how we were going to advertise
Yeah.
for our resident position for this committee. And now we want to fill 4 spots for an ad hoc committee that we're excited to move on and move forward. So I just caution with perfection in the way of progress at this point in time. It's important, and we have to move forward with things. I don't know what the best option looks like at the moment. That's why we're having these discussions.
I can guarantee you there are people interested in such a committee. I can get you 4 people.
But to your point, not loading things up, I think I would wait until the finance, residents on finance is filled, and then advertise the next one, so then we do this in 2 months.
But could this committee meet in the meantime with those vacancies? Yes?
Well, you wouldn't even,
Certainly
depending on.
get
We
ideas
can
together.
discuss it, or we just
This
discuss it.
committee can, but
This
the
ad
ad
hoc
hoc
committee.
could not because,
So if we
well,
want to have,
if we're having 7 people and we're only appointing 3, then there's
Then
not a
there's
quorum.
Yeah,
So, but I would
That's-
think it, we're playing the long game. So
Yeah.
whether we fill it in 1 month or 2 months, slow down, do it right, fill it in 2 months, and then let people get moving.
So what I'm going to do is make a motion to approve council approving the recommendation of the finance committee to address improving communication with borough residents. That's a lot of approving and improving. And that is just an open motion that says this is something we'd like to do, and council can then decide if an ad hoc committee is specifically what we need and how it should be created.
But can't we continue and say our recommendation being that an ad hoc committee consisting of 3 council members and 4 members of the public be established, and that the vacancies for residents be advertised beginning in February. I mean, can't we make a recommendation?
I mean, all 7 of us are here. Is this what we want? I'm going to stick with the motion to approve recommendation of the finance committee to address improving communication with borough residents. And
We can leave this as a standing item on the agenda.
yes,
so that you
this here, but we're gonna just make sure all of council is on board with this
Yeah.
and go from there.
I mean, even an ad hoc committee should have some basic structure as to what's your purpose, what are you talking about?
Yeah, that I can wait till February meeting, that's not.
Does anybody want a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Could
Opposed?
we consider, is this legal, I guess? I think it's legal, but I guess current council members, what do you think of having like, I don't know, call it a kickoff event, like, town hall, advertising that this is an important goal of council and we would like to invite any resident who'd like to come to learn more about this vision, and then we would get applicants that day.
You can do that, but we would have to advertise it. We'd have to find probably either the library or maybe the school as a location. So, I mean, not something we could move on quickly,
Right.
immediately.
But with our timeline of February, March, maybe.
Something that I had thought of the other day was, instead of jumping that far ahead,
Mhm.
is to put together like a Google survey that we could try and push out on the website to residents to say, what are you looking for? And ask a few questions.
I feel like
see what
there's
we get from the
limitations
survey.
in sticking with things just online because we.
I understand
every
that,
resident
but-
who does not have.
Also doing a town hall
Access.
right now is a quick jump.
Well,
I
yeah,
think we need to, one step at a time.
Personally would have the committee first, because I think the committee is the audience for the town hall. And I would not limit applications to people who can come to that meeting, because there may be many people who have a conflict that particular day, but would be able to serve generally, so
Sure.
I would think we should appoint the committee first, then the committee.
I mean, kind of what I'm hearing from everybody is that we do find this to be a priority. We have lots of ways we want to move forward. It sounds like we need a little more discussion before we try to set something up. So I think perhaps leaving it to next month's finance committee and then making finance administration, come back with your ideas from there, and then we can move as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, we know we can't do things in January at this point in time. So we want to try to move quickly. We want to move intentionally. We want to invite as many people to the table as possible.
Yeah.
So that means we need to spend a little bit more time thinking about how we want to invite that participation.
Okay, so should we
Okay.
rescind our motion?
Well, there's no problem with council improving communication.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a step in the right direction to show
Right,
that's our commitment.
yeah, it's gonna be on the record that this is what our focus is, so.
Yeah.
Agreed.
It's just,
Items-
it's not concrete is my problem.
That's
We
okay,
can just say it's our goal.
this is our goal.
That's fine.
Numbers 12 and 14 are probably gonna end up under that committee, so I'm gonna bypass them right now.
Can I take a pitch
Yes.
for-
I
In
think,
the last council, we made the radical step, and I'm being sarcastic, that committee members would have the ability to add a public comment period at the end. Refuse and recycling, which I chaired, was the only committee.
Park and Shade.
No.
It wasn't
Because
there, I
it was not.
opened it and
It-
it will
it
be
was
there
not.
this month, we already
It
discussed it.
was not. We're the only one which always had public comment period at the end.
Mhm.
I think that should be required of every committee. Every committee. I don't think there should be any controversy about this. I think the public should have a right to comment to committees before things reach council or don't. Because I think that's the way, we drive things through committees. And I also think the second public comment period should be not only on non-agenda items, but I think people ought to be able to speak about agenda items. And I think this should not be controversial, and I'm hoping it would pass without being put off.
Okay, number 14, a motion is needed to table, approve, or deny recommending council approve adding a second public comment period at the end of every committee. I will make the motion to approve.
I'll second.
And
Is there any other discussion?
can we amend it to say approve non-agenda, address non-agenda and agenda items?
Yeah.
I would
There's
do both.
two, yeah, that would kind of combine 1 and 2, right, all into one mo. The first is
no,
to add
well,
the second for
Which
non-agenda.
is- Oh, it just says non-agenda items.
Yeah.
I didn't read all the way down.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should be agenda and non-agenda items.
Yeah, so
Do we
if
have,
we have, so with the amendment from both first and second.
Yeah, do we have, what
Um,
do we have to do to amend that?
nothing?
I have to run.
Yeah.
Apologize, guys.
No, you have a motion and a second?
Whoever made the first and the second both have to agree to the amendment.
Yes.
So you're both agreeing to that?
Yes, we are both.
I'm not on this committee.
Oh, I'm
Apologies.
Okay.
Thank you, Adrian.
Yes,
Yes.
okay, we are
I
agreeing
second
to amend it
amend the
to
agenda.
agenda and non-agenda items. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. I would like to make a motion to table number 4 and have 14.4. I would like to make a motion to table recommending council amend public comment policy to allow residents to see the remaining time. I think that needs a little bit more
Mhm.
detail so that there's some clarity to it.
Second.
So, do you want me to refine the proposal and resubmit it?
Yeah, I think that we can push that to the ad hoc committee. If you'd like to work on that, you can, and push it to them and see. But I think some of these policies are what that committee's for.
Okay.
We have a motion to table, and you seconded?
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Right to know request. Motion is needed to table approve standing item on the finance and admin. I think this is something we definitely need information on. I don't know that this is something I want to push on your plates right now as to adding more topics to the finance agenda. I think as long as we are tracking how many we're receiving, the amount of staff time and attorney fees, if we have that information, I think I would like to consider tabling this so that,
Well, I don't know what you mean by tracking that, because if it's not put on the agenda, then what good does it do to track?
well, if they're tracking it and we have it, if we can put it off for us taking this on the finance agenda, which is now 3 pages long, next month, I think it's something we can start looking at as a committee in 3 months.
Don't you think if we're trying to communicate better with the public should know what this costs and how much time it's taking?
Yeah,
So what's the big deal?
Right, because.
there's a
because
big deal. I mean, how much more time is that going to add to your plates?
We're, to some extent, already tracking it now in that Melissa has a log of everything. It's already part of the monthly invoices from the solicitor. I think the piece that's not per se being tracked is depending on what the request is and what Melissa's getting it, but then who's the person that's pulling the information? That's going to depend on what's being requested.
Right.
So I know, like, Phyllis and I don't track our time. I could give you an estimate going back, looking at the request, and depending where I have to go to dig up certain things, sometimes it's 5 minutes, sometimes it's 5 hours.
That's why I think it's, if we want to look at the data, for example, this calendar year, the sooner we start.
Right. So Melissa, you're already tracking your basic time. You're not tracking your time either. Okay. So basically, the only thing we're tracking is the number of, obviously, right-to-know requests we have, as well as the specific line item for the solicitor
There's
fees.
not a specific line item in the budget.
The retained.
It's when the invoices come in, there's a
Right.
separate billing matter specific to.
Right, yeah, I know it's not in the budget, but it's in their bill.
So
They have a
what do we-
specific line item.
What do we hope to achieve? What is the actual
We're-
goal of this? What purpose is this serving? What message are you trying to send to the residents with this, with this idea and providing this information? What's the goal?
I think there's a lot of work which is done by the borough,
Mhm.
which is not visible to the public.
Okay.
This is work that by law has got to be done.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of what we need to do to educate the
Mm-hmm.
public is give them some idea of what these different things, how much it costs them in time,
Okay.
and how many people are involved, because they're not seeing the benefit, but this is work that has to be done.
Right.
I'll add that, as Mr. Jadek stated, the number of right-to-know requests is theoretically reflective of trust in council. So if we're tracking this, what I would hope as a council member is that our right-to-know requests plummet because the public trusts us.
What concerns me is, all right, let's talk about showing the cost. Fine, we show the cost. First of all, no one is concerned about that having a chilling effect, people feeling that they're costing the borough money by making requests because we're making a point of publicly elucidating how much money it's costing the borough for people to exercise a right that they have.
I think it's important to understand the full picture. I mean, to me, if you pull this up and you say, okay, I'm going to send this report in, that doesn't necessarily resonate to everyone that, the time and the effort and the, I think it's an important part of the picture to understand that there
Right.
is it's not a free service. There are costs, and especially with
It's not a free
the
service, the
budget.
residents already pay taxes. I mean.
Right, but our
And the
personnel
taxes
costs
very
are,
hot topic right now. And so
our
I
personnel
think
costs are
Yeah, sorry,
extreme. Yeah, our personnel costs are very high. And
That's not just reflective of the right to know.
no, it's
activity.
not.
I would argue that's probably not the major percentage of our personnel costs. I think we all
No,
know
it's
where
not,
the
but
major
it's-
But so let's, before we start saying our personnel costs are high and just use that as a broad item, let's talk specifically about what our personnel costs are high. I'm also concerned this This item says, including the number of requests received, disclose information. What specific information? Are we planning to disclose who asked for these right to know requests? Are we going to go the approach that other borough takes and says, this person has asked for this many things? Where does it end? What specific information? Like, if you want to provide financial information and staff time, fine, but let's and attorney fees, let's leave it at that, or be very specific. Let's not leave it open to what information we want to give out when it suits us, because I think that's a risky activity, because next thing you know, we're frustrated by someone's request, and now we're going to put that out in public, and I think that's a really easy place to go when people frustrate us, and people will frustrate us. There's no question about that.
Well, the agenda item that was placed on the agenda specifically states number of requests received each month, amount of staff time spent responding to the requests, and attorney fees paid. It's those three
It says
items.
including, that leaves open the possibility of other pieces of information. It doesn't say specifically those pieces of information. You could say that's parsing, but, you know.
I
We should be
didn't write
clear.
it,
We should be clear, yeah.
but we can certainly alter
Just
the,
say, just delete the word.
delete the wording.
Okay, so
To me, it reads kind of like we see a lot of reports from fire and police and things like that, like where
Where the money-
resources are going and where the time is being spent. And I do think it's an important part of that picture. I think I understand your request for definition, and I think we define it in a way that keeps it, anonymous to an extent.
Yeah,
I don't think the intention is to discourage.
right.
I think the intention is to raise awareness and provide
I'm just
clarity.
bringing up
The-
possible
The
scenarios.
the police report every month that gives you a literal breakdown of the
Yeah.
exact number of hours they spent on
Yeah.
each
Yeah.
different item.
Again,
And
that's not the
we
issue.
get an higher number of right to know requests than most municipalities, than many municipalities. And I think this is an important thing to share
Yeah,
with the residents. And we delete the word including so that there's no question. And it's going to list I'm trying to find it up there.
Mhm.
It's
No,
going to
it's- you
list
don't need to-
the amount of staff time, the number of requests, and the attorney fees.
yeah.
The only thing I would add is perhaps the names of the people who are responding to the requests, so they get a stack of people out there.
Yeah, to quantify.
Right, and personalize it, which I think is a good idea.
Yeah, I see
Say that
this
again.
as, sorry.
Like,
So
is it Michelle spending the time? Is it
Yeah.
Melissa spending the time? Is it Phyllis spending the time? Is it
Is it gonna be advertised what
who's spending which?
exactly the request is?
I don't know that we need to break that down line. I don't know how many we get a month, but it's,
Like what the request is
Why not?
over.
If we're trying to be
Yeah.
I know.
Yes.
clear with the public, let them know what they're asking.
What they're asking, yeah. I see this as like a quality dashboard. In the spirit of transparency, everybody should know if one borough resident has a question because they're unsure or distrustful of a certain specific area. I don't have any problem putting that out there and responding appropriately and providing documentation.
Why do we not? put this- I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
I think
I think there's public comment.
I
Yeah.
think it could be beneficial to us as well to see if there are certain topics being questioned or requested. I think it gives us insight into where the concerns lie as well, because I know right now that there are a lot of requests, but I don't know what they pertain to. And so I think it will be beneficial to us also to know the
I don't
scope
know
of the
if
request.
it's Negative to.
I would like,
Get it, though.
Yeah.
We need to make it anonymous.
I would like your input on how much time this is gonna take to create this report, and how is this something that can be done by next month, or can we wait till March?
Wouldn't it just be
This is,
like a line or two to your
It
spreadsheet?
should really is just adding the timing aspect, so I already, when a request comes in, I have a spreadsheet and I assign a number to it, requester's name. If I have a company of where they're from, I'll add that and how the request came in, whether it's in person, mail, fax, email, whatever it is. And then specifying what the actual request was for. Sometimes the requests are lengthier, but so I just try to add just a quick summary, financial results or whatever it might be. And then I utilize that to track the timing, not the timing that it takes me, but it is,
Deadline.
yeah, the deadline of, because it's a 5 business day thing, did we have to do a 30-day time extension because, somebody on vacation now has to go look for documents that we need 30 days, whatever that might be.
Right.
And then when it's due, when I responded, how the response was approval, denial, partial, and then I have a column if there was any appeal associated with it. So it really is just adding the time taken to do the response, pull the records, and who exactly is doing.
So we would need an additional column for who is doing the records, how many hours that was spent, and then also a line item for fees, for lawyer fees.
So yeah, we're not always,
We may not always have that.
I mean, it's
not
gonna be
consistent.
Right.
after.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it can, yeah.
So would you just characterize this as a moderate amount of additional work, minimal amount of additional work?
I think it's just more so just remembering to track the time
Yeah.
associated with it. Just
Yeah.
not used to, doing that. I know some of them can be lengthier than others. Some of them are quick approval. We have one document, here you go.
Yeah.
So I think it's just to be remembering to do the time tracking.
And I would move it along.
Requesters.
Well, you have that.
I do,
tracked.
regardless, it's just depending on, well, to see that or not.
Well, so I feel like in high fidelity organizations, when there's a culture of safety, people should be able to report without fear of repercussions. I don't think we need the information of who is filing the right to know. I feel like that will be perceived as a way to dissuade people. So I think that should be left off.
But when someone's weeds are 2 feet high, they show up on a report on infrastructure because their weeds are 2 feet high.
That's anonymous.
That's anonymous too.
I mean, code enforcement, code complaints by state law are anonymous.
Yeah, that
It has
report.
an address, but it doesn't have a name.
And I think the goal is to foster dialogue with anybody who's filing a right to know. I want to reach out my hand and say, hey, what can we do better? So eventually it will be out that's the goal. It should be out in the open, but.
If people want to know, they can file a right to know request.
Okay. So we are looking for a motion to recommend council, add a standing item to the Finance and
Thanks, Steve.
Administration Committee agenda to discuss specific details
Steve.
of the right to know request.
Take it.
Bye,
So
Steve,
why
thank you.
does council have to approve this?
Because it's not something we're doing now. I mean,
I don't know why finance just couldn't ask that it be a standing item on the agenda.
On our agenda, yeah.
Yeah,
We'd have to amend the agenda. Do you guys have to amend the agenda to change that?
Yeah, we could, but I mean, it doesn't, I don't think this is a matter for council. I think the committee can decide to do something on its agenda.
yeah.
I agree as well.
And this just says committee agenda to discuss specific, so can we make that motion?
Well, the motion is here. It's whether we,
But it doesn't specifically say the aspects, it's just vague and says to discuss
that's
specific.
because I had no idea where this conversation was gonna go.
Exactly.
So
We can approve
so
that.
can we just table this
Intend to be
recommendation?
big sometimes.
And-
I don't know what's gonna come out of it.
Yeah.
Well, if we're recommending it to council, it would be spoken about at the council meeting, and I think that's part of the transparency.
Yeah,
So we're looking for a motion to recommend council approve adding the standing item to finance and admin.
Okay, but
Yeah.
I think we should be specific about what is going to be reported to address.
The number of requests, the amount of staff time spent responding to the request, the attorney fees paid, and the nature of the request,
Well,
basically.
and the
report.
staff involved in responding to the
Right.
request.
Is there a precedent with any other boroughs or townships that they do the same thing already?
yes.
Yes, and
Yeah.
some even put them in the request.
Some are, yeah, very detailed.
Would somebody like to make that motion?
Some are. Melissa, you've got that right.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. I think we covered everything on the agenda somehow.
This was a good meeting, a lot.
All right.
Thank you.
Is there any public comment?
Yeah, I wanted to,
Or
a couple of
place.
things, I actually wanted to tell the solicitor about it, but, going back. Again, I've heard EHD, and I'm sorry, Jim, I hope you can have the same standards and put some stop on. We can't have somebody talk for 45 minutes here. Sorry, I appreciate him, but it's way too much, that's not a report, that's boring. But in any case, fine, that's my opinion.
Sorry.
Yeah, so, he said this, he restated about the issues with the previous broker. Again, I filed a right to know request for that information. I was given nothing. So until we have a document of what were the issues and how they were addressed by borough manager, those issues are just hearsay. We cannot have PhD come here and say we had issues with, I don't know what, I forgot. But he did say. And when I filed the right to know request, that's why we filed right to know request, because untruths are said, or things that are not backed by documentation. If there is an issue with a broker, I want to see emails. Hey, buddy, get your stuff together. None. So where did we get this? Just Michelle's opinion? EHD's opinion? Because that's what it is. In absence of documents is nothing. And that's why there are right to know requests, because we keep saying things that are not based in facts. Stop saying things that are not based in facts and the RTKs will stop. It's that simple. Okay, next. Yes. So I had, there were discussions over committees and treasurer before the new council was seated, and you testified to this. You talked to Dave Reeser way before the new council was seated. That should not happen. Sorry. You were only, how many that old? You didn't have a quorum of people discussing that. We have to seek the council, then we start talking. It's not upon you to take that. Sorry. I was trying to get the video. I was told that there was an executive session call before the swearing on Monday. Is that correct?
Oh,
That's what I was told.
It was.
I was waiting for.
okay, well,
I'm sorry.
It was
If
after the swearing in.
the
It
people,
was after the
the
swearing?
council was sworn in, the mayor was sworn in, and then there was an executive session.
Okay, then I apologize. I was told, I was hoping to get the facts from the video. The video is not up there, so I don't know. So, strike. Yes, and with the right to know, yes, we have to, I fully agree to track it if you use that information to make things more smooth or to avoid right to know requests. I have an automated RTK after each council meeting to get the documents. Why? Because we do not publish all the documents. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'll be done. So I'll publish and that goes. Nobody needs to, we don't need, I don't. The other thing is, the flip side, you're asking them to track their time. The last thing, the first thing I hate, I hope Chris agrees with me, is if somebody tells me how much time you spend on what each day, I will quit my job. That's not something you want to ask an employee. I think that adds extra time. So what are we achieving? If we can start small, okay, give us a list of blah, 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 which she already has, fine. But if you're asking her to say, I spent 2 hours on this, 5 hours on that, I don't understand that. And yes, it is shaming. If you're starting to think of how you refuse to put the NOVs. You don't put anything on NOVs.
Thank you.
So,
Motion to adjourn?
So agenda.
All right, let's bring the finance and admin meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Jen Reimer,
Here.
Chris Valente,
Here.
and Jana Barnett.
Here. Is there any public comment?
Yes.
Yeah.
My name is Dave Reeser, 1110 Fairview Avenue. I'd like to comment on the treasurer's position and the conflict of interest that's involved with that. First of all, I've never had a conversation with anybody from the borough regarding the conflict of interest. So I have no idea what the issue is. So I can't speak to that. However, I feel that there is no conflict of interest, and I'll try to explain it very briefly. The borough appoints 2 people from West Reading, Wyomissing, and Shillington to the Water Authority. My position is to make sure that the borough of Wyomissing is taken care of, if you will, that we're not abused, that things are running smoothly and have Wyomissing at their heart. Okay? That's my position. That's what I've done for 20-some years. Now, the conflict of interest, I just still don't understand it. Now, interestingly, I served on council for 18 months replacing somebody with illness. And then I was also the treasurer for the last couple of years, and that issue has never come up. So I really don't know what the issue is. But I just feel that it would be nice that somebody would talk to me and say, hey, this is why, this is what we believe. Now, I did have a conversation last month with Jana, not regarding conflict of interest, regarding the 2 positions, treasurer and the water authority. And at that time, I said that I would prefer to do the water authority. I reflected on that since, and I still have some doubts, but I'm willing, if the position is offered by council, I'm willing to serve as treasurer. And I would certainly discuss the water authority situation, and if it is or it isn't, let's sit down and talk about it. And we can negotiate or whatever we have to do, but I'm willing to serve if so called. That's really all I have. I'll be glad to stay here. Unfortunately, I have an appointment about 9:30, so I don't know if you want to discuss it today or not, but I'm going to leave about 9:30 if I have to leave. So that's my only comment. Thank you.
Thank you. I can give you a quick response. The short of it is, while serving for the borough, you're writing checks to an entity of which you are also serving on and collecting the checks.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
And that's really the long and short of it, is you're signing checks over to an authority that you're signing checks to deposit. And there is a conflict there. Additionally, the other position is a paid position, which could possibly lead to a bias versus an unpaid position.
Yeah.
So that's where the conversation came up with the solicitor and discussing it.
The bias issue, I never even thought about that, because my duty is to serve Wyomissing, but okay, I understand that issue. The other one, as far as checks, I have nothing to do with the billing. The water authority bills the 3 boroughs with the usage. It's all measured by meters and what have you. I have nothing to do with that. I have nothing to do with the billing of the bill. I do it on our side. We do an EFT every month or whatever it is to pay the water authority. I just initially, that's the extent of my involvement at all. There's absolutely no other involvement with the borough. The borough owns us. I mean, they're the owner of the borough, of the authority. I don't see any conflict. I am treasurer out there also.
Correct.
And I've just never had an occasion to have a conflict or even look like conflict. So the bias thing, I can assure you that was never the case with me, but I can understand that argument. I can't disagree with that. On the surface, it would certainly appear that way, yes. Okay, yeah, that's fair. At least now I know what the circumstances, but it's very frustrating to me to do something like this, and nobody talks to me. I don't like to operate that way, but that's another issue.
I apologize, nobody came sooner.
Okay.
We thank you for your service.
Okay.
But yes, we agree that it's a conflict of interest.
Okay, if that's, I know the basis of it, well, we could certainly negotiate it. If you so desire to have me as the treasurer,
Okay.
we could certainly discuss that and come up with a remedy.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. Any other public comment?
Yes, I have some.
Go ahead.
1 second, let me put this thing in place, I apologize. Okay, shortly, I truly believe that at least Mr. Reeser should be given the option to choose. If you stick to the idea, I think you should be given a clear option to choose between one and the other. I think that's fair. It's that simple. The discussion with Jana back then, I know a few things about that, was not clear on this. Anyway, back to my comment. Accountability isn't a slogan. It means when borough management makes decisions that materially affect cost, risk, or trust, there is written justification, competitive process when appropriate, and routine public reporting so council and residents can verify performance. Right now, we don't have the luxury of messaging. We have real financial pressure. The borough is carrying long-term debt from the 2024 borrowing and is still outstanding, and the year-end numbers show we're running deficits and drawing down cash. That's what a structural problem looks like. Recurring spending outpacing recurring revenue. Residents don't get annual pay increases of 22%. That remotely track what government is, so we need a credible plan that prevents the next big tax hike, not a new set of explanations and spin. So I have 5 concrete requests, each tied to items on your agenda. First, publish the plan, not the narrative. We don't need to hear, trust us, this is how it is. You're discussing whether 2026 budget expenses can be reduced without reopening the budget and how to better capture staff time and material costs. Good, but discuss is not enough. I'm asking this committee to recommend 90-day corrective action plan with 3 things: the top drivers of the gap, specific actions with owners and deadlines, and a monthly dashboard budget to actual plus a simple done or not done status on those actions. I think this is fair. If you want residents to trust the numbers, show the work every month. Second, do not cut liability coverage on a talking point. You're considering canceling $5 million excess liability layer to save roughly $25,000. That's me. That's pathetic. That is a risk decision, not just a budget line. Before you recommend that to council, the public package should include a minimum. The full coverage stack showing what remains after the cut, deductibles, self-insured retentions, a summary of loss history, or the broker's risk analysis, and whether the council supports the change in writing. If you can't put that in the packet, then table the recommendation. Do not trade catastrophic exposure for modest savings without a written rationale the public can evaluate. Third, fix procurement and vendor governance so we stop repeating the same mistakes. This is an administration part. Residents are tired of single option outcomes and decisions that appear to happen, do you mind? That happened midstream without clear, precise comparisons. Whether it's insurance services, legal services, or other major contracts, the rules should be boring and consistent. If there's a potential conflict, disclose it, and document recusals. If management proposes a material change, switching providers, extend major arrangements, or changing coverage, bring it to council with apples to apples comparison and a recommendation that grounded in numbers, not in relationships. We don't want to hear, oh, those guys are great. That yoga instructor is fabulous, Michelle says. That's not how government works. Fourth, interim CFO transition must come with internal controls, not just a name. And by the way, we've done it again. You approved $185 an hour without even looking at other options. Where are they? You looked at them, you didn't present it to the, I don't know. You can nod your head as much as you want. I haven't seen the options. So you're introducing an interim CFO arrangement and discussing transition planning. The question residents will ask is simple. Who has authority to commit the borough, approve spending, and manage cash while roles transition? So publish the engagement scope and term, the not to exceed amount or rate structure. Who can authorize work and expenditures, and what separations of duties look like? Who initiates, who approves, who pays? Transitions are where mistakes and quiet decisions happen. Controls are how you prevent that. And fifth, final, I think. On public comment policy, I support adding a second public comment period at the end of the meeting for non-agenda items, but it must be consistent across committees and boards, not discretionary. If it's optional, it will be skipped when it's inconvenient. On the seating time for response idea, put guardrails in writing. Responses should be optional, time limited, and factual clarification. And on the right to know standing item, yes, track staff time and legal cost, but do it in a way that improves process instead of chilling residents. Report aggregate counts and categories, not narrative descriptions that single out people or discourage lawful requests.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
May I please finish?
Sure.
Thank you. So the answer to right to know is publish the documents. Nobody wants to spend time writing right to know requests. When you have too many right to know requests, that's a sign of distrust. Because over and over, we've heard statements in council and committees that were not backed by documents. So the first reaction when I hear Michelle saying we found $100,000 in insurance premium, file a right to know request, find out that we actually paid $200,000 more. No documentation for that statement. So publish.
Mr.
And
J,
if
you have to move on.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Cash update, Phyllis, or Scott.
At the end of December, cash and investment totaled $7,008,000. That was a decrease from the end of November of $820,000, as expected as we get to the end of the year and we're paying out final payment amounts.
Excuse me, Phyllis. Is there any other public comment? Do you want to sit at the table, Steve? You're welcome to come up here. That's fine. Any other public comment? Okay, sorry. Thank you, Phyllis.
No problem. Interest rates continue to fall marginally. I have in orange that I had not received the Tompkins statements. That was true at the time I distributed the reports. In yesterday's mail, the December statements arrived. The savings accounts, where there is a balance range in the high 2%, or excuse me, high 1% to 2% range, those where there's a minimal balance, and I've swept all the cash over to Pliget. The interest rate is a fraction of a percent. Likewise, in the checking account where I keep operational cash, in the payroll and the escrow account, those rates are about 1.5%. The other checking accounts are a fraction of a percent. So the Pliget rates still far outpace what we see at the local Tompkins. So I move as much as possible from Tompkins that's not needed for operations over to Pliggett. Those rates remain in the high 3% range. There is still pending grant activity. We continue to await reimbursement for the turnout gear at the fire department, 1/4 of the bike share stations, and now there's additional reimbursement that we're waiting for the marking of the fire chief vehicle. That was a grant that was submitted and approved. So with pending activity, our cash would total $7,039,000. We have not made any additional debt payments, and next debt service will be due on June 1st of 2026. And that will be possibly adjusted if we receive the RACP reimbursement and we make that one-time allowed prepayment, then the remaining debt schedule would be adjusted.
So the RACP still hasn't come in yet?
They're waiting on one. We need to get them our fidelity bond, which as of yesterday, I hadn't gotten a copy of from the carrier. So that's the one thing they're waiting on.
So, thank you. You were very clear. I just want to be certain for myself. The entirety of the difference between the 278 and the 107 was swept into the Pliggett? Or were there other expenses that drew that number?
In the month of
from the
December, there's not
savings?
a lot of cash receipts.
Okay.
So in order to make payments on the fourth quarter MMO, some of the capital projects payments that were approved by council, funds, we needed to take money out of Pliggett and move it to Tompkins for operations to make those payments. Okay. When we look at the Pliggett balance, the current balance is at $6,785,000. In the general fund, we do have a $3 million term that will be maturing in mid-February, which is a good timing on our part and a better interest rate. So we were wise to hedge that and move those funds into a term project. I keep in class just what's needed because there is a higher rate available in the prime. And you can see the differences there. It's just a fraction of a percent, but we get as much as we can. There remains proceeds from the original debt issuance of $392,000 that remains reserved for future building improvements. And liquid fuels, which is required by law to be segregated, totals $128,000. That will be adequate to get us through the beginning of March, when next year's distribution will be received. As far as interest, our year-to-date, our interest total for 2025 was $451,000. That would be $63,000 less than had been budgeted. Two causes for that. One would be the falling interest rates and the non-receipt of the grants gave us less money that we could invest.
Go ahead.
Any questions on cash or investments?
You guys have any questions on Pliggett or how any of this works?
I do have some information on rates, and you can see a year out from now, they are still in the high 3% range. So it doesn't look like a lot of movement for next year. So when funds become available after tax collections start, there would be opportunity to invest in those rates. Okay.
Questions?
For the month of December, as I said, very few dollars were received in revenue. Local taxes at $649,000 is a function of the quarterly cycle. Net real estate taxes totaled $52,000. Revenues for the month of December totaled $1,691,000, bringing our year total to $25,041,000. That is less than the prior year when we were receiving debt proceeds. It is less than had been budgeted because of the non-receipt of those grant revenues.
So the sewer drop is because we didn't receive the grant funding? That big balance, okay.
Expenses for the month of December of note, final payments were made on the street and the Stonehouse projects. The third payment was made on the Berkshire Heights project, and the first payment was made on the sidewalk project. The fourth quarter MMO, which fulfilled our liability for 2025, was paid for $161,000. Expenditures for the month of December totaled $2,129,000, which brought the year total to $26,340,000. That would be less than had been budgeted because of the capital projects that were deferred. And we will look at those variances when we look at the net results.
So when I first looked at this, it was disappointing that we surpassed our budgeted amount for December, but all of the, just to be clear, so I'm clear, all of these big items listed there were projects that were well underway. There was nothing new that caused us to overspend in December, right? These were all like final payments on projects like the playground, like.
Keep in mind that the monthly budget contains a lot of estimates as to the timing of some very large dollars.
Right, okay.
And depending on when the contractor submits their request for payment and council approves it, and it finally gets paid, when I'm preparing that monthly budget at the beginning of the year, I'm making estimates as to when will the water project occur?
Right.
When will street paving occur? So when you're looking at big variances, they tie to timing differences that the borough is just out of the borough's control.
There's certainly a variance, but I would not characterize it as overspent.
Right. There were no decisions that were made regarding new projects, to spend on new projects.
These are all projects which have been in
Yeah.
process for a very long time.
Exactly. Now, I mean, those are the things that I think I, as a member of this committee, would like to explain to, because, members of the public are here and they're looking at the numbers and probably don't have an understanding. So I know it might be worth explaining that.
Yeah, no, that's all the questions.
So on a net basis for the month of December, there was a deficit of $437,000, which brought our year-end deficit to $1,299,000. That was more than the original budget, which planned for a deficit of $724,000. That additional deficit was $575,000. When we look at the causes, I've updated what we've viewed as we were budgeting. You can see that in the revenue, it was the non-receipt of the grant reimbursements, which totaled, with all those different grants, totaled more than $3 million of revenue that we anticipated but did not receive. That was offset by additional local tax and real estate tax that was received that was not originally budgeted. On the expense side, you can see there was capital projects delayed, as well as an over-under on capital projects. Again, because of estimates of timing, we see in the 2025 results, we see projects from 24 that fell into 25, and we see projects from 20 that were planned for 25, but the expenses will fall into 26. There's also a variance created when the engineer's estimate exceeds what the actual cost was that was incurred. It's occasionally it goes the other way, where we did not budget enough, and that would occur because of change orders. That once the project starts, we find that there's something more that's needed, that change order is approved.
That'll be approved normally by infrastructure, going to finance, and then going to council. So this is not anything the administration does on its own.
Yeah, I mean, I just want you to keep in mind that the 3 million that we were waiting for, which balances out sort of the 3 million that was so-called overspent, 2 million of that is going right back out the door to pay down the $5 million loan. So it's not as simple as this balances this exactly.
But we don't have to repay the loan then, but it is, we have an opportunity, only one opportunity to make a significant payment.
Payment up to 2.1 million
Yeah, so
by in June.
personally think we ought to pay down the debt, but that's a discussion the new council could certainly have.
When the 25 deficit of $1,299,000 is added to the beginning of the year fund balance, we end the year with an overall fund balance of $8,155,000, 1.8 of which is reserved, leaving unreserved fund balance at the end of '25 of $634,000. There is some pending activity, which includes the grant reimbursements already described, as well as open permit fees of $5,000. With those pending items, the end of the year unreserved fund balance is $6,377,000. When we look at that closer, the reserves, let me just add that for the month of December, the usual activity, the MS4 was added, maintenance, and the final payment on the Stonehouse released that reserve. I did make year-end adjustments to the reserves. The Finance Committee did approve reducing the reserve for MS4. That built to an amount that was more than is needed for the next 5 years. So $200,000 of that reserve was released. I also added to the reserve for the garage and public and administration future projects, facility projects, the interest that had accrued on that amount, so that this reserve equals what's in the Pliget account. So our end of the year, beginning of '26 reserve is 1.8 million. Back to the fund balance. When the deficit of 1,299,000 was added to the beginning of the year fund balance, as I said, we ended the year with a fund balance of 8,155,000. With the approved '26 budget, which is a deficit of 983,000, the projected year end for 2026 would be an overall fund balance of 7,172,000. Future reserves are anticipated at 1,035,000, which would leave an unreserved fund balance at the end of '26 of $6,136,000. That equates to approximately 2.4 months of reserves overall. When you look at just the general fund, it equates to 1.2 month worth of expenditures.
The 2024 up at the top, the 11.4 million, was that beginning of year or end of year balance?
That was the beginning of the year, and then there was a deficit, and then '25 started with 9.4. And then we had a deficit of 1.2 and ended with 8,155.
So basically, from end of '23 to end of '25, we have dropped $3.5 million
Because of the deficits.
because of the deficits.
Yes, of
Now,
0.9 and 1.2
this year, we're supposed to end with 7.1 million
overall, correct?
overall, but that includes the 3 million out of the $5 million loan. Like, we have a $5 million loan that's in this 7, correct? So theoretically, if we didn't take out that $5 million loan, which I know we had to, we'd be down to 2 million. I'm just trying
That
to,
would presume that we would build the garage out of fund balance.
correct,
Which would.
correct, but we borrowed 5 when we only needed to borrow 2. So we have an extra $3 million. I just want to say, we went from 11.5 down to 8 million. But 3 of that 8 million is borrowed money we have to pay back over the course of many years. 2 of it, we're going to pay back immediately with the grant.
And the prepayment of that 2.1 million is included in the deficit
Correct.
for next year.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, next year's deficit, next year, or the end of this year's balance at 7 million is still 3 million of borrowed money that has to be paid back. We've lost a lot of money over the last 3 years.
We've spent a lot.
In
Spent a lot
25,
of money,
we're ending 25 with 8.1.
correct. But of that 8.1, 5 million of it's borrowed.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any question on fund balance? Okay. Moving on to revenues. For the month of December, tax collections totaled 94,000. That would leave an uncollected balance of 94,000 or 1.58% of what was originally billed. The taxes received by the borough for the month include 7,000 of November collections that were received in December, and 54 of the 94 was just received yesterday, and that will reflect in January cash receipts. So the gross tax received by the borough totaled 47,000. When that 47,000 is, when we add penalties and interim taxes, the net real estate taxes received by the borough during the month of December totaled 52,000 and brings our year-to-date total to 5,892,000. And that is 137,000 more than had been budgeted because the bills as originally issued were issued on a higher assessed value than was available when we budgeted. Okay, that total also is 22,000 more than what we had projected while we were budgeting. Okay, any question on real estate taxes?
Melissa, is it fair to say that the collection rate is pretty steady
Yes,
over years?
Yeah, we're 98 and a half, which is very consistent.
I had one question regarding discounts, and that's a line item on the overall budget, and
Yes.
now might not be the time, but it seems like when we're operating at a budget deficit, offering discounts for taxes paid seems kind of weird to
We
me.
don't have a choice about that.
That's a mandatory thing?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Plus, we can, I mean,
And
it's
the-
not as good as it looks because we invested earlier.
Because you get the money sooner?
Yeah, you don't
Becomes-
get as
Yeah.
much discount, but it helps.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I try to pay it as soon as I can. But I don't know, it's $106,000, so it just made me question what, yeah.
That's required. We look at local taxes for the month of December totaled 649,000, which brought the year total to 6,566,000. That is 683 more than budgeted and 26,000 more than we had projected while we were budgeting.
Just to make the committee aware, I've asked Jenny Hart, who's the executive director of Berks CIT, she will be attending the February meeting to give you, one, an explanation on what is business privilege tax, and then also explain collection, mercantile local services tax, all the things that Berks CIT does for us.
We look at the individual taxes. The real estate transfer tax for the month of December totaled 24,000, which brought our year total to $776,000. We had budgeted just 466,000, which was more on par with where we were when we were budgeting in the fall of '24. But that amount is 310,000 more than what we had budgeted. You can see the commercial properties at the bottom that contribute to that. When we look at our real estate transfer tax, approximately half of it comes from the exchange of residential properties. The balance, we count on commercial properties exchanging at those larger dollars. So when you consider the potential settlement for the Berkshire Mall, that's where that additional money will come from. Versus what we had projected when we were budgeting, we received 1,400 more. So our projection was very accurate. We looked at earned income tax for the month of December. 520,000 was received. That brought our year-to-date total to 3,467,000, 117,000 more than budgeted, and 67 more than we had projected when budgeting in the fall. We look at mercantile tax, an additional 9,000 was received during the month of December, which brought the combined total to 1,708,000, more than budgeted by 216,000. But it did fall shy of what we were projecting when we were budgeting by 41,000. I had anticipated collections similar to what we had seen in the prior year, and they just did not materialize. The last tax is the local services tax. For the month of December, we received 95,000, which brought the 25 total to 614,000. That was 39 more than we had budgeted. We budgeted an amount that was on par with what we were experiencing in the prior year. And it fell short of what we had projected by just $900. So we're pretty close there. Any question on the December or the year-end revenues? No? Okay. Moving on, a quick update on the capital projects. We did make final payment on the streets project during December. We made a final payment on the Stonehouse project during December. When you look at that overall project, the contract cost with all the change orders was $562,000. Grant revenue received during the year totaled $460,000. So 82% of the project cost was covered by grant revenue. For the Berkshire Heights Playground during the month of December, application number 3 was paid for $31,000. That leaves $86,000 that will fall into 2026. And the first payment was made on the sidewalk projects during December for $42,000, and that will leave $87,000 of that project falling into the current year budget. For the Berkshire Boulevard Swale project, due to some change orders and weather conditions and so forth, the first payment as well as the change order was deferred into 2026. We were aware of that at the time we were budgeted, and that was planned for. So we look at total capital projects in the month of December. In addition to all the payment apps we talked about, this attachment to the Flusher truck was received for $21,000. So our total capital expenditures that were planned in 2025 totaled $169,000, bringing the year's total to $2,277,000. And you can see it is $1.2 million less than what had been budgeted of $3.5. Any question on December expenditures?
For the capital projects, the $1.2 million under, is that also?
Yep.
Was that all delayed, or is some of that cost savings?
It's a combination of these numbers that we looked at up here. Here we go. There's a patch. Okay. So it's a combination of things being delayed into next year, as well as things from 24 falling into 25, and the result of the estimates being different than what the actual project costs were.
Thank you.
Okay. If there's no further questions, I will turn it over to Scott.
Thank you, Phyllis.
Okay.
Thank you.
Phyllis, I just want to comment, I'm always amazed how close your projections are to actual. I don't know how you do it. So thank you very much. You're very welcome.
Sure.
Good morning, my name is Scott Brett. I work with Transcend Finance, and we serve as interim outsourced whatever CFO for various different local governments in the state of Pennsylvania and authorities as well. So our offices are Allentown and Pittsburgh, and we have a growing practice and are happy to serve. So thank you for having me. We're here to discuss the transition between, as you know, Phyllis has given her notice for retirement and for the next plan going forward. So we have a variety of, as you know, the job was posted. We have resumes, we're reviewing those, and we should have some interviews scheduled for the future here going forward. So we'll keep you updated and in the loop as to how those will go.
And to go back to, I think there was prior discussion, Phyllis has expressed she's not interested in reviewing resumes or being part of that. Melissa and I were talking about this later on Monday. John Groller, who is Spring Township's manager, is also their CFO. So I thought of reaching out to him to sit in on initial interview as well as asking for some interview questions. And then it would really be up to the personnel committee. I'm thinking similar to other department head positions, we've done round 1, round 2. Round 1, more staff consultant. Round 2, more council members, personnel committee. So it's up to the personnel committee who they would want to be part of that round 2 interview.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions for Scott before we cut him loose? Unless I think you're welcome to stay, but I don't think the rest of this necessarily pertains to you.
No, that's fine. I will also make one note From what we've seen with our work around the Commonwealth of PA and numerous different municipalities, the work that Phyllis has done here has been excellent and superb. And you are leaving, or she is leaving with a great void. So I will say that no matter what, she deserves the highest praise and as much gratitude as we can give her. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Zach Foch. I'm from EHD, Angleham Bright Davies. So I am from your insurance brokerage firm. We have represented the borough since 2025. As many of you know, if you're new to council, I'll kind of go through the insurance briefly, give you a high-level overview of, how insurance differs from what we do in our personal lives to how commercial insurance operates, and sort of the model, the way it works. And then as you can see, there's a lot of coverage as a borough that you need versus what we would do in our everyday lives. So, if you think about insurance from our own personal experience, we typically need auto coverage, homeowners, possibly an umbrella coverage for yourself. So there's really 3 items you really need, aside from health insurance. But with that, a lot of that onus falls on us as the consumers to go out and try to find insurance carriers, calling agents and whatnot, doing all the work. And that differs in a sense. So we can go out, we can call Geico, Allstate, State Farm, you name it. Or you could partner with a broker who would access certain markets as well. But the onus falls on the consumer to place their insurance. It's a little different in commercial insurance across all spectrums in all industries. So in commercial insurance, generally speaking, the insurance carriers work through brokers. But the brokers, myself, we work for you. So we work for the consumer. You're our client, but we access the different markets that you need to access in order to place coverage. Specific to EHD, since some of you are not familiar with us, we are a regional insurance firm with clients in all 48 of the lower states. We are a top 100 ranked agency in the United States. Out of 35,000 agencies, we're in the top 100. Our largest specialization is public entity insurance. So insuring towns, boroughs, cities, counties makes up a majority of our practice. So we know what we're doing. We have access to the markets that work in this space. We understand the marketplace. We understand the nuances of government insurance. As you can see from the line item list, there's a whole host of coverages. I don't want to bore you. We could be here for 2 hours if I were to go through every single thing. So I'm just going to kind of point out some things, some trends from this most recent renewal, but I'll take you back a few years. So when we were brought into the conversation about the insurance, part of our questions were, what are some of the challenges that you're having? What are some of the things that you want that you're not potentially getting with your previous provider? And a lot of the conversation centered around claims management and risk and safety training. There was, support that was being asked for from those 2 items specifically. So we put together a plan, and I'll just give you some numbers here. In 2025, our in-house risk and safety training specialists provided 64 hours of training or site visits to borough staff. That's all with the goal of making the employees and the borough safer so we can help reduce claims. For 2026, the same plan is in place with a different set of trainings. So, our team sits down with Greg from Public Works, maps out a training calendar. So there are 12 visits scheduled for 2026. That previously was not happening. So we made some changes to the insurance program in 2025. Some were forced, some were not. Some were decisions we made to put the borough in a better position. I'd be naive to sit here and pretend like we don't know that insurance costs have, what I would say, skyrocketed in the last few years. So I'm going to get into why that is and what's driving that factor. It's not unique. However, I will say in your instance, the costs are above what I would typically be comfortable with. So as your broker, as your representative, my goal is to drive those costs down. I'm not here to drive those costs up. I work for you. So one of the changes we made in 2025 is we moved the borough into a self-insured group trust comprised of other municipalities throughout Pennsylvania. So you're not big enough to self-insure yourselves as an individual entity, but by pooling together, you are able to take that risk on with other entities of your similar size. The trust that you went into is called the Susquehanna Municipal Trust. It's located in Lidditz. And for those of you who might work on the health insurance side, it is I want to say a sister company to Benecon, who does a lot of health benefits for schools, municipalities, private sector. So
Including us.
Yeah, so I believe you have your stuff with Benecon. That was not part of the decision to move you to Susquehanna Trust. They operate independently of each other. Some of the benefits, go ahead.
Sorry, I think because he left the room, there's a problem with his camera remaining.
I think that we can just leave his camera go at the moment. I don't think we need to force the issue.
Yeah, I'll speak loud. So
It's just a violation of policy, so just so everybody knows. You
So
let it
we're
go for a
doing-
while, but
We're doing the resident a favor
Yeah.
by letting it go.
Yep.
Okay.
So by moving you into the trust, there's a few benefits. There's several. First and foremost, there were a lot of challenges with the previous carrier with claims management. So this alleviates a lot of those issues that borough staff was having in managing claims from the workers' compensation. The second thing it does is the trust, and it's comprised of approximately 80 other municipalities. The trust has, the goal of the trust is to maintain a consistent rate structure and not have rates fluctuate. So when we talk about workers' compensation, we always look at the final premium, but what we really have to do is back up and look at what the actual rates are and what our payroll is, because those are the two things that determine, well, one of the two of three things that determine what your final premium will be. So I compare it to buying dozens of eggs, right? Go out and buy a dozen eggs, they're $3. Well, that might be cheap in today's market, but you buy a dozen eggs for $3 versus buying 4 dozen that are still $3. So people see that, well, we paid $12 for the eggs. Why are they more? Well, the rate hasn't changed. We're still paying the same $3 per dozen. That's the goal of the trust. We're still paying the same rate, but if our payroll goes up, so will our premium. If our payroll goes down, in theory, so will our premium. I'm going to touch upon a third factor that will affect your premium as well, in addition to rate and payroll. But the point is, the Susquehanna Trust movement, moving you into that trust last year, was so that you could also realize dividends. So the goal of the trust, you're insuring yourselves with other like-minded municipalities. You're not paying an insurance carrier anymore, okay? So with that, the goal of the trust is to return unused funds back. So we look at claims, not we, but the trust looks at claims over the year. And then the goal is to pay out the claims that need to be paid out, and then return unused excess funds back to the members. In the old model, AmTrust being the previous carrier, the goal was to have very little claims, right? And then the insurance carrier keeps the profit. So we moved you into a group where you're essentially insuring yourselves, but with the help of others. So that was the one change we made in 2025. The other change we made, which wasn't our choice, you were being insured through a program called Trident for your property and liability lines of insurance. That was covering things like property, equipment breakdown, inland marine, general liability, your public officials, down to your law enforcement liability, your auto, and your excess liability, which is what we call an umbrella, okay, that first $10 million umbrella. With that being said, the carrier non-renewed. So I want to make it clear, though, even though they non-renewed, we did not switch carriers. We were able to convince the carrier to rescind the non-renewal and offer coverage. However, the caveat was they did not want to provide the law enforcement liability coverage anymore due to a large claim that they paid out on in the previous year. So that was one of the factors that drove the cost of your insurance up. You had to take what was previously covered by Trident. You had to take it out into the marketplace. We took it out and shopped it. We looked at, oh gosh, 6, 7 carriers. There's not a lot of carriers that provide law enforcement liability as a standalone coverage, but we went out to all the markets that provide that coverage. And in order to get something as comparable and equal to what you had previously, we had to place a lead excess and an excess liability law enforcement policy. So I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but let's say you were paying $20,000 in 2024 for that coverage. You can see that the expiring went from those two lines combined. You have law enforcement at $58,780 plus the excess at $54,869. So, approximately $112,000, let's call it, $113,000 versus what you had been paying. So that was part of what drove those total insurance costs up. And also the increase that Trident, on the lines they did stay on, they took an increase. The reason for their increase and the reason why your costs have skyrocketed are very simple. Claims. Your claims data, your claims history, as a whole and individual lines, it's not favorable. And I kind of compare it to like try to get a mortgage with a 500 credit score. We can't be unrealistic and think that, in 2021, our total insurance costs were $379,000. In 2022, they were $393,000. Now this includes all lines. And then in 2023, they went up to $518,000. So you start to see in 2023, you start to see the jump. I'm sorry, they went up to $441,000. And then you go up to $543,000 in 2024. We can't think that insurance premiums will hold, especially in the market that we were currently in. We experience it in our own personal lives. Insurance is increasing for us all, me included. Not happy about it, but unfortunately, that's the state of the marketplace due to losses and claims. I'll give you some numbers here. Your total claims for property and liability, so you can hear how this is driving it. Your total claims from 2020 through 2025 was just short of $1.6 million. That is a lot. That is driven by a few large claims, specifically. But in other words, the insurance carriers are looking, obviously they're in business to make money. Right, wrong, or indifferent, when they're writing an account, and if you're going to pay $300,000 in premium, but you have $600,000 in losses, they're eventually going to either cut ties or increase premium so that they can become profitable. There's no other way around it. We were able to convince Trident to not non-renew. They stayed on it. However, we did shop it in 2025. We went out to the marketplace and we did shop your package lines of insurance, we call it. That's the property and liability. The results were coming in much higher than Trident with less coverage. So we did some selective marketing for 2025 because, again, we're going out to the market with a bad credit score per se. So it's not like we can go out and we don't have much leverage to work off of when I'm sending insurance carriers 5 years of loss data, because that's what they require, 5 years of loss data in order to provide a quote. We don't have much leverage when we're showing that. They're not going to come back and they're not going to say, well, we'll do this for $300,000 again. You're in a position where we need to right the ship. And in 2025, things improved, but there were still some losses. There was one large auto claim that resulted in close to $135,000 in incurred claims cost. So things were kind of going okay until we got to that point. And again, so we're looking at, almost $240,000 in property and liability claims for this 2025 term that just expired. So that's part of the reason why we are putting so much emphasis on safety training to prevent injuries, to prevent third-party liability, things of that nature. But, I guess the point of having insurance, as we all hear from people, is so that our claims are paid. I'm sorry. But I just want to give you some background as to why we've seen these huge jumps. And I remember sitting here last January, and Steve was sitting over there, and I made the comment, I'm the guy that gets to come out brand new and deliver you a $300,000 increase. That was not by design. I don't take any pride in that. Our goal as your representative, as your vendor, is to get you the best value at the best deal that you can get. And I would argue that had we not been involved and that non-renewal stuck, we were able to convince the carrier to overturn that because of our relationship and how much business we do with them versus others in the area who don't, number one, have access to the carrier. So the other brokers that could be considered wouldn't even be able to access them. Or number two, don't have as much leverage as we had. I would argue then that you would have paid even more money in 2025 because the other options that were out there that we went to were coming in significantly higher. And I'll say one last thing about that. The insurance marketplace for municipalities is small. There's not 52 carriers out there that want to write municipal insurance. It's a very limited market. So it's much different than in our personal lives where we could, go on the internet and find, e-insurance, and we could call Geico, we could call State Farm, we could call everybody. It's much more limited. So, we work with all of the players that are in that game from an insurance carrier perspective. We understand what they like and don't like. And we also know that, how are we going to write this ship? And we really have to tackle some of the claims. That's the key here. Borough staff has done a great job. Greg and his team, Michelle and her team have done a great job. Everybody's sort of working to find ways to how can we reduce claims that, oops, we backed into something, $25,000 later. How can we reduce those errors?
Zach, outside of the trainings that we've already engaged with you guys, the hours that you spent, are there any other trainings offered or any other ways that we can be proactive about in looking to get additional discounts through those means with a large claims history?
So we need the claims history. The claims history will show up for 5 years. So, in 2026, they're not looking at 2018 data anymore, right? When I send it off to the carriers for quotes. So we need to get away from some of the large shock losses because, we look at a shock loss as one single large claim, but when you have one 2 years prior and you had one 3 years prior, carriers notice a trend. It stops becoming a one-time shock loss, and it becomes really, underwriters are like salespeople. They have goals, and if they write an account, they write an insured, and they have a $500,000 loss come in, that goes back on them. So my point is they're very hesitant. They're very weary to look at an account with losses like this and put their name on the line, if that makes sense. To answer your question, though, Michelle and Borough staff are also taking advantage of Susquehanna Municipal Trust has an entire portal of trainings as well that are being offered. So those are things that are being done from the workers' compensation side.
We also have a safety committee. It's solely made up of borough staff. It's required that department heads plus an employee representative from each department attend those meetings. We meet monthly. We talk about claims that came in, workers' comp specific in the past month, talk about, I often bring up what season is it? Okay, so it's winter. Let's be mindful of slip and fall. Let's be mindful of frostbite. Let's be mindful of all the injuries that could happen when you're working outside in the winter versus the summer. And we've also had the conversation, I've boiled it down as bluntly as if this trend continues with insurance, it is going to come up as part of contract negotiations. Departments are going to have to be responsible for the cost the borough is incurring because of negligence or unsafe actions on the part of different departments and employees.
In addition to this training, the police department has a lot of training. Chief Phillips is very proud of training, including how to drive safely. Of course, a significant accident happened after the officer received that training, so it doesn't always prevent it. But
and
maybe it does. You never know. But
it's a challenge, obviously, especially when you have a police department. It's always a challenge. Municipalities with police departments face those same challenges. You have pursuits. You're going to have, more instances for officer injury with struggles and things of that nature. I see it across the board. But really, your claims as a whole are driving, I would say, sort of your lack of leverage in the marketplace. Because my job is to leverage you in the marketplace. And, by the way, I don't like telling the insurance carriers out there all of this information. We like to keep that close to the vest. I understand it's public information, but, if I'm going to an insurance carrier where an underwriter lives in Harrisburg, the first thing they're going to do when I send them a submission is Google your borough, right? So the less information they have financially from the insurance is better for me and for us, but I understand it's public information. But most of them aren't going to do a right to know request to find out what you're paying. But neither here nor there. We'll try to get this cost under control. Some of the things that we can look to tackle in, I'd say, the next 2 to 3 years is potentially getting that law enforcement liability back to the standard marketplace, back with an insurance carrier that's also insuring your other lines of coverage. That's a goal of ours, kind of reduce that cost. But yeah. And one last thing, workers' compensation has trickled up the third piece there with workers' compensation is you have an experience modification factor. Every entity in Pennsylvania gets what's called an experience modification factor. So what that essentially is in layman's terms is the state looks at 3 years, prior years of claims data, and they compare you to your peers in the state that are in the same class of business as you, so other municipalities. And they essentially give you I'll call it a score. It's not a score, but I'll essentially call it a score. And that score is going to impact your premium. So a 1.0 would mean that you are average and your claims data is essentially the same as all of your peers for what they should be. If you're over a 1, you're not performing as well as your peers. So let's say you're a 1.2. What the carrier has to do then, the carrier is required by state law to apply a 0.2, a 20% factor to your premium. So that would increase your premium. If you're under a 1, so you're a 0.85, now you have a 15% credit. So it goes the other way as well. Just trending, your EMOD has been very good over the years. It's been under a 1. It's been as low as 0.769. But in your most recent term, because of the 3 years prior claim data they reviewed, the state factor score was a 1.20. So your workers' comp premium, even though the rate stayed the same, your payroll's gone up, and so is your experience modification factor. So you're going to be looking at that SMT piece going up in relationship to that.
I would add that Ronnie Ryan from SMT, she had a call with Melissa and I, was that end of November, beginning of December? She was the first one who ever explained that mod snapshot to us and how it works. And it was one of those, you don't know what you don't know. So we very much appreciated her taking the time to go through that with us and explain. There were some claims within the past 2 years I think we thought were going to weigh heavier on a renewal rate, that once she explained things to us, it's like, okay, so we were putting a lot of weight on some significant claims that in reality were not as bad as we had expected them to be.
And being a part of that trust, that score though is still just ours. Yes, it's not impacted by.
It's our claims.
Impact others. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
specific to us. Okay.
Yeah, that everybody gets an individual experience modification factor. Yes.
And is that a 5-year look back, just like standard insurance?
So the 5 years is for if you're shopping the insurance, the carriers require at minimum 5 years of loss runs for all lines of insurance. That's different than what the state looks at to calculate the experience mod. They're doing 3 prior years, okay, of only workers' compensation, only workers' compensation.
Was the 135 shock loss the biggest shock loss?
No. You had a law enforcement claim coming in just short of 500,000 in 2024 prior to us taking over. That resulted in a claim year of $649,000 worth of claims for property and liability. And I have the data broken out by property liability, workers' comp, and then total losses by year.
Is it fair to say that council did not approve payments of the claims? This was the discretion of the insurance companies?
Yeah, that would have been an insurance settlement. So that's, the insurance carrier paid out that wasn't coming from the borough's pocket. That was insurance. The insurance carrier paid that claim.
Beyond not coming from our pocket, we didn't have the
Found out.
opportunity to, any power to approve it.
You do not, no, that's, yeah, with insurance, you do not have necessarily say in that, that settlement. That's handled by the attorneys from the carrier and plaintiff's attorneys. But the caveat then is, obviously, if they're paying out $500,000 on a claim like that, and the overall claims aren't good, that's why we're seeing the costs increase. I think there was a question somebody had mentioned previously. I heard, why do we have a SWIFT policy, SWIF? That's the State Workers Insurance Fund. They insure your volunteer firefighter exposure. They're essentially one of the only carriers that will do it. The state fund is where you go as your sort of last resort, if you may, in the state of Pennsylvania, if you're not able to obtain workers' compensation insurance. Volunteer firefighters are often insured in the state fund due to the Cancer Presumption Act, I believe from 2012. So a lot of carriers will not a lot, almost all the carriers will not provide insurance for volunteer fire.
I think it's important to note too that if you look at the workers' comp coverage, you can look up online as someone, anyone can go look that up. And it does show that all of our coverage is through there. Essentially, that's how it reflects, but I think that distinction is important to note, just because we do have the majority of our coverage elsewhere,
Yeah.
which is, yeah. Thank you for clarifying.
And there was another point that we wanted to discuss here, and that was what's called the excess liability. It's that $5 million line. My number's different, but that's okay. Turn the wrong thing. So Michelle and I were talking, and she's, what can we do to reduce the cost aside from getting the claims under control? And one of the things I pointed out is, you're carrying $15 million in umbrella costs, or umbrella coverage, I should say. You have a lead umbrella of 10 million, and then you have an excess below it of 5 million. I'll just give you some comparison points. I will not make recommendations per se, like, yes, take less coverage. I will give you the data, and I think it's best for you to decide. But most municipalities, counties, cities will have about $5 million in umbrella coverage total. Your primary layer is 10 million. And that 10 million with Trident differs from having 5 or 10 million with another carrier, because Trident handles their umbrellas a little differently. They do what's called siloing, which is a good thing. So when you have an umbrella, for example, say you had a $5 million umbrella, it's going to sit over various lines of liability coverage. It's going to sit over your general liability, your auto liability. There's several other liability coverage that would sit over your public officials. So what that does is that umbrella will kick in if you have a claim that exceeds the limit of your general liability, for example. So if you have a $1 million general liability limit and you have a claim that goes over $1 million, your umbrella now kicks in up to $5 million, in the example I'm giving. What Trident does is they silo it, though. So in the example I just gave you, I should say that regular umbrella covers all lines. So if you have multiple claims in different lines of insurance, it encompasses all of them. So you're limited. You can exceed your umbrella quicker. Siloing it means that you get 5 million, in this case 10 million, over your general liability. You get a separate 10 million over your auto liability, and you get a separate 10 million over your public officials and your employment practice liability. So you essentially have more limit there. And that's why I said to her, one of the things you can look at is that excess $5 million policy. I mean, Pennsylvania, and Heidi can speak to this, has, there is limited immunity, there's sovereign immunity, where claims are capped, payments are capped, I should say, on local municipalities. It's different for the state. They have a sovereign immunity, which is a little different. But you're going to have a cap on claims to begin with, individual. So that cap is $500,000 per occurrence. So, I just pointed out that you're carrying your primary umbrella at 10 million is already more than what the average municipality will carry. And I wanted them to keep that 10 million in place because it is a benefit to the borough and it's siloed. However, the excess 5 is something you could consider, knowing that your peers and benchmarking would say that you're severely overinsuring yourselves based on peer data and benchmarking.
Why were we doing that in years past?
That was prior to my time.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I couldn't answer that question. I don't know if there was I don't know.
Give me an example of what would cause us to need the whole 15? Like,
I think of like a school bus accident, but that would be one occurrence, right?
So it'd be 500.
So I would have to think you'd have to have individual occurrences that would go over, you would have to go substantially over the cap of $500,000 per with your immunity. You'd have to have multiple instances of that throughout the year. I think the likelihood of that happening,
Knock on wood, please.
I just think the likelihood of, honestly, when you look at the amount of claims you could have it's a very slim likelihood you'll ever use the 10. Extremely.
Maybe a really nutty example, perhaps when we did an inspection, we missed a gas leak and perhaps a hotel blew up or something like that. I think they might hold us responsible somehow, but like any of that.
Is there a cap on that?
It's $500,000 per.
Doesn't matter, like,
Yeah.
the degree of.
The only thing that gives us hesitation is if the statute ever changed or a judge ruled outside of it, which it's not my realm to speak on. It's the only thing that ever gives us hesitation to keep like a $5 million umbrella, $10 million umbrella, to keep those limits higher. Some people say, why don't we just have $1 million? Because, you could potentially have multiple occurrences, which get you over your million. Still very unlikely. So.
Do you have any data on how often municipalities exceed a 5 million in a year or 10?
I don't have that data with me now. I can look to see what we can find, if there's any benchmarking. It's a challenge to find examples of claims that have gone over it, because that's not always shared. That's not public data in some instances. But we can look to see. I mean, I can give you the benchmarking of, how you compare to your peers with your coverage, for sure. Give you an example, there's a county-wide program across the state called CCAP. They offer all the counties $5 million umbrella.
I just think that might give folks some insight into
Yeah.
how that could happen.
Right.
That it's, instead of making up some ridiculous example.
Right.
Steve, you got input?
Well, if the $10 million is silent, that, it is silent, it's not questioning it. It probably is a little more than we need. But it'd be good to check the benchmarking, compare it to what the CCAT is. And,
Is this something we can table till next month? And try to use these numbers?
Absolutely. I would say absolutely, speak out of turn here, because there's a 25% minimum earned premium, and you guys have already bound the policy. So you have to be in it for 25% of it anyway. So,
Might as well keep it.
if you made a decision today, it couldn't be canceled anyways until March approximately.
Okay.
Point.
But I have a note here for benchmarking.
So can I summarize? I'm sorry, I hope this isn't annoying, but I like to just summarize the facts. And personally, I lean towards, being more conservative and more coverage. It seems indisputable that we're severely overinsured right now. Compared to our peers, the likelihood that we would ever exceed $10 million is infinitesimally small. And it would seem irresponsible to me at this point to pay an extra $25,000 or $33,000 for insurance that we're almost undoubtedly never going to need. Is that what we sort of just said?
Yeah.
Okay.
I share your conservatism with that, because I always, with different types of businesses, I think more is better sometimes, but that also comes with a cost. So it's not my money. I understand the cost factor. But in your situation as a public entity, it's a little bit different, because there is some limited immunity there for various types of claims. So,
Chris, just to go back to address your question, speaking of prior carriers, so when I took over as acting borough manager in late 21, insurance was already settled for 22. We had known issues with lack of communication, lack of explanation with the prior broker, hence why I brought to finance and council switching brokers. So I can't tell you why that 5 million line, like why we were overinsured for years prior. It just came up as part of this conversation because of what went on with switching brokers, or not brokers, carriers and coverage.
Okay.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions on this? So if we can get those numbers by next month, I would be willing to table this.
Just leave it on the agenda for.
Just leave it on the agenda. I'll make a motion to table recommending council approve canceling the 5 million excess liability coverage for 26 pending data.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. All right.
thank you, folks. If you have any questions that pop up after I leave, feel free to send to Michelle or Melissa, and I'll talk with anyone and give you any information you need.
Thank you.
Thank you for what you do, and congratulations.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Newly elected officials, congratulations and best of luck.
Thank you.
All right. Time is at 9:15. We have a lot of line items left. We're gonna see what we can get through. It's more than I had anticipated when I saw it, so let's just kind of roll down the list. The vacant position on the finance committee, I believe we only received one that wasn't a duplicate of somebody who was requesting this, the finance seat as well as the treasurer seat. It would be my opinion to not rush it and to try and re-advertise it. Does anybody else have any thought? Talkative bunch.
Was this posted on at least 2 or 3 Facebook pages, accounts?
I think it was posted in a,
At least once a week for 3 weeks, separate weeks, and I think it was also pushed out by my rec, and I think it was also pushed out by the email.
At least, I think 2 emails.
Okay, and I know I put it on Facebook, I called, contacted at least half a dozen people. I mean, if the only criticism is that in addition to all this, it was not put on Instagram.
Was
I
it,
can't imagine.
was it advertised individually or was it advertised along with the treasurer? Because I feel like they were packaged together at
Randy, can you speak directly to when the resident finance position was posted on our social media accounts? Was it its own separate ad or was it combined?
Go back and check, but I thought they were separate.
And email wise, were they separated or were they joined up?
I think treasurer and assistant treasurer, I think were
Together.
together. but
Yes.
I don't remember about the other one.
I think the posts were independent, but the email was all together.
Was all together.
I believe.
Yeah, I feel like when I read some of it, it was treasurer, assistant treasurer, finance committee, residency, kind of all together, which was a
I know
lot
I
of
lumped them
information.
Together, but
What's that?
I know I personally lumped them together.
Right, and I think they're two separate commitments. And once you see treasure and the information for that, I think you don't even keep reading into the resident finance committee seat. So it would be my position to try and re-advertise that seat, but
Well, especially if you think it was sort of overshadowed.
I think it was
by the first
overshadowed
one,
by,
That's,
yeah.
Okay.
That's my position. Does anybody?
okay, so if we agree to, if we agree to re-advertise, are we going to take the next step and specify exactly where and frequency and take care of everything?
Yeah,
To
I
do
mean,
that in number 16.
right, that's long term. I think it has to, again, just be emailed a few times. It's got to be put on social media a few times, but it has to be direct and to the point, finance committee seat, once a month, financial background knowledge.
If it's, oh, sorry, go ahead.
And I hope that it's clear that the applications will be discussed in public
Correct.
and that the applications will be public themselves. So people understand.
That whatever they send in is going to be.
Yes, potentially
Yeah.
reviewed by people.
I think that's.
I think that's
Yeah.
fair to tell people.
Yeah. If it's appropriate, Randy, if you would be okay with it, I just have things that I've learned over my year with marriage shelter and all of that as far as like timing, just things like that. I can just tell you what I've started doing that I think has helped as far as getting eyes on things, if that's all right.
Yeah.
I think you're doing some of it already, but I can just let you know what I've seen and if you want to do some of that too. So I can set a time with you if that's okay.
Okay.
And
So
then,
is the proposal to re-advertise on our Facebook pages, even if, for example, the rec Facebook page refers people to the main Facebook page, and do it for once a week for 3 consecutive weeks? And also, is the desire to push it out on my rec and also the email that Melissa puts out. And if you all can comment to the, is that doable without?
We were having a sidebar, I'm sorry, I missed the last
Randy.
part of that.
Okay,
It's been initiated.
okay.
Email blast. I just did a meeting
I've
minutes.
seen
or
an
meeting.
uptick in unsubscribing, by using my rec for other than rec.
Well, yeah, I mean, we,
Do we not have another email that we can use?
We have the borough one.
Right.
So like when we push news and notices out, they automatically go out.
Who've opted into that.
right, but you have to opt into it, which is easy to do on the website, but.
Right. Do we know how many people are opted into that one?
I can check.
323.
Yeah, it's a low
That
number.
has.
And
Pushing.
a lot of that is also staff that sign up for it, and I'm sure council members,
Yeah.
committee members.
Yeah, I mean, this conversation is a whole nother
Yeah.
barrel of monkeys that,
Right, but
I think we just go with what we've been doing, if you have
Do you
input.
have a close date that you want to use?
well, if we could start, I think we want 3 consecutive weeks, probably beginning next week.
Next week.
What's the close date for applications?
Okay, I would think the following, whatever. So
Like,
if it goes
yeah.
out on Monday, the following Monday, I think what we did is 9 AM, applications need to be submitted to Michelle. Does
By
that
end
mean?
of day, yeah.
I have,
Well,
Randy,
we
obviously
need
you have the
time for them
app.
to package it and put it in with agendas, so.
So you're saying you want the first one to go out this coming Monday, which is the 12th? Yes?
I don't think we need to dictate Monday necessarily.
Monday's a
Sometime
terrible
next week.
day for emails.
Or,
It's
right,
the
yeah, no,
worst.
people are,
Yeah.
I mean, you guys seem very, very specific as to how you want to do it, so I think we need to be that specific if we want it to occur in that capacity
but
right
we
now.
said the following, beginning next week, for once a week for 3
So you
consecutive
want 3
weeks.
consecutive weeks, so the week of the
Correct.
12th, the week of the 19th, the week of the 26th. So we want to close the application period the end of the 3rd week, so 1/30 would be the final day for applications. Is that what you're anticipating?
Well, last time we did the following Monday, but there's nothing magic about that, but what, if the staff could tell us, how much lead time do you need between receiving things and putting them on the agendas and?
I mean, our own policy is no less than 3 business days. Melissa does a really good job of trying to get agendas out, if possible, a week in advance. Worst case scenario, at least meeting the 3 business day deadline.
Do you know when our next finance meeting is?
The 5th.
So how much?
So we would need it the week before, which would be like the 20th.
No, is it the,
So if it would be the 5th, if we end the 30th, we would need staff to compile it for the agenda for 3 days by Monday the 2nd, so the next business day,
That's not
which would be
enough time.
3rd, 4th, and 5th available for the meeting.
It's not fair to
A
say.
little unreasonable.
No, not working. Now, is there something magic about 3? I mean, could we do 2 twice?
That'd be the-
I don't think there's any magic to it right now. So before we go any further, I will, it sounds like everybody's on board, make a motion to approve reopening and re-advertising the vacant resident position on finance.
That's been seconded.
And that's been seconded? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Can we
So
pause
we
for
will
1 second?
Re-advertise.
I can-
Yes, sorry, thank you.